Quaker Service, report from Philadelphia, which I hope you will all find exciting and inspiring. It began with 31 mostly Central Philadelphia friends who wrote about their service, or what we call ministries, in the meeting newsletter. And 9 of these folks volunteered today to discuss their contributions briefly. And others are going to listen in. And in each case, we have time constraints, but in each case, I'll ask a follow-up questions. And Nicole is here to offer the technical support. And Nicole, you want to say a couple of words?
Sure, thanks so much, Greg. So I have my phone number listed. It's 215-519-6753 if anybody needs technical support during our talk today. And just to let everybody know, we are recording. So if you'd prefer not to be on the recording, feel free to hide your camera. I think there's a way you can turn it off. And basically, we're going to have everybody muted during the presentation. And then once we're at Q&A, you can feel free to unmute yourself, and we can go ahead and have a nice conversation. So, all right, Greg, I will turn it over to you.
On to me. Okay. The book is divided. Let me show it to you, if you can see this, and I hope you can. Is divided into 8 sections alphabetically, and we'll go through it that way, with one exception. We have a meeting service category, and one entry is there really for fun. And so I thought it'd be fun to start that way today. It's Esther Muir's poem on Quaker decision making, titled Revisions to a Postcard Sent to the Membership, Rearrangement of the Meeting House Benches. Esther, would you unmute yourself and share that with us?
Okay, I hope I am in voice. Well, this was a real postcard. Central Philadelphia Monthly Meeting continues its saga of stirring adventures with a called meeting on June 22nd. The clerk exhorts us to be conscientious. 9:30 a.m. in the meeting house. Once more, friends, into the trenches. We will continue our consideration. White knuckle thriller, the gut wrenches, begun on June 8th, of the recommendation arrived at in meetings long and contentious of the Committee on Worship and Ministry that we arrange the meeting house benches in a trapezoidal configuration with promiscuous seating for all kinds of benches, rather than a square or a trisoctahedron. The latter would be considered pretentious, or rhombus, or spiral, or a Moebius strip. Will it take 8 years to achieve consensus? The mind flinches.
Got it.
Well done, thank you. So I'm going to ask everybody a question. The question for Esther is, what in the world is a trisoctahedron?
It is a, well, you know what an octahedron is? It's two 4-sided pyramids mirroring each other, and then each side of that is a 3-sided pyramid.
Okay.
And
Done. Thank you. All right. Now, the first section of the book is very important. It contains a very important topic for our meeting these days, and that's anti-racism. And Diana Yanez has addressed a particular problem within that larger concept, which is colorism. So Diana, would you read from your text?
Definitely. And just to introduce colorism, colorism is the idea that the lighter your skin, the better person you are. And this is just leftovers from institutional, it was easier, and it still continues to be, right? Lighter skin gives you more ease walking around, and this is a huge thing in the Latin community. So give me 1 second. So I'll read this paragraph. For me, my profession is a place where I contribute to repair. I highlight the history of racism and financial inequality in my work as a financial planner, because acknowledging the depth of a situation creates fertile ground for healing to begin. You must know where you stand before you can change direction. A healthy individual who has their personal needs cared for can then create healthy communities that demand change. Yes, we cannot give from an empty well. This is why I work on personal finance rather than public policy. My personal gifts and skills are best suited to help individuals gain peace and joy with their money. From there, my invitation is that they connect to their community.
All right, thanks, Diana. My follow-up question is to continue just a bit. How do you go about making financial advising your ministry?
I think there's a lot of gaslighting that happens in the financial system where, like, if you're not in the place that you need to be, it's because it's all your fault. And here I help people, I encourage people to look at the systems that we live in, the oppressive systems that we live in, while also owning their agency, right? And sometimes you can't do them both immediately at the same time, but I hold that for them. I hold the idea that they have agency and encourage them in that path.
Okay, excellent, thank you. All right, next we go to the arts, and we have quite a number of friends, including me, who see the arts as their ministry. And one of them who's going to read to us today is Margot Tassi, and we have a show and tell from the book that Nicole will put up for us. Can I get Path of Water, set in Canada. So Margot, would you read I thought the first paragraph of your essay would be best.
Thank you, Greg. No synonym for God is so perfect as beauty. That was written by John Muir in the Atlantic Monthly, 1869. My art ministry is a healing ministry for me. How it affects other people is not in my power to predict or control. Much as delivering a message and meeting for worship, my paintings will have meaning for some, but not for everyone. I do feel the need to have them seen with the hope that some will experience in them my appreciation for the wonder, mystery, and beauty of the world.
You know, Margot, the interesting thing is you go to Nova Scotia in the summers to paint. I suppose because of COVID, and this may have happened once, you couldn't go to Canada. How would you pursue your ministry or your art?
It actually did happen in 2020. The borders was closed to Canada, so I was not able to go. I spent that year and the other parts of the winters when I was here working on mainly oil paintings in my studio. I do oils and watercolor. I rarely amend the watercolors, but sometimes I do. But I had a lot of satisfaction in bringing some paintings to completion that I didn't really feel were what I wanted them to be. However, in thinking about the future and the possibility of not being able to get up there, I've always done still life painting also. And as long as, for me, now some people, I think beauty is everywhere. And for some people, they can simply look at objects and make a beautiful painting from them. For me, I really like to have a little part of nature in a still life painting. And that takes me back to the same kind of excitement I feel when I'm out in nature myself. If I have any choice about it, the image that you're looking at it is my favorite kind of place to be. Looking at the water and the movement of the tide, that's what really inspires me. And I just become part of it. So, you know, ideally, that's where I want to be when I'm painting. But as I say, beauty is everywhere, and it's the artist's job to find it.
Well, that's beautiful, Margot. Thank you. Can we have the full screen again, Nicole? I'm looking for Laura. I haven't seen her. Are you here today? There you are. Okay. Laura Silverstein's, let's see, the section is Caring Professions. And her text is My Quaker Spin on Helping Couples with Conflict Management. And Laura applies Quaker testimonies in her couples counseling. Would you read a bit for us, Laura?
Thank you so much, Greg. I had written a note into the chat that my copy of the book is on the way. So Carolyn has very generously agreed to read. It's not actually, that's actually my book, Carolyn. It's from the Quaker Works book that one. So I'm wondering if anybody has a copy and could read my chapters for me. I apologize for being unprepared.
I happen to have a copy, but I have to find the page now. All right, let's see, Laura.
You had written me an email with the page number.
Oh, tell me.
I would just look it up.
Page 59.
Yes, I did find it. And
Thank you.
was there a particular paragraph that we talked about?
You said paragraph 2 and 3, but if it's just one, that would be fine. Paragraph.
Okay, well, they're short. Okay.
Oh, they are short. Okay.
No.
I don't have, like I said, I don't have it in front of me. So
This is from Laura's article, My Quaker Spin on Helping Couples with Conflict Management. Most common reason couples reach out to me is for help with conflict management. They are fighting more than they'd like, and they find themselves doing and saying things they regret. They want to treat one another with kindness and learn what changes they can make to fight less and have more happiness. I recognize that the Quaker testimonies of nonviolence, simplicity, and equality are a central part of my couples therapy sessions every single day. Okay, tell us how it's helped you grow as a Quaker, your work.
yes. So thank you for reading that for me, Greg. So as a couples therapist, I really feel that so much of the work around nonviolence, like in the
just
home,
listen to this?
helping people to learn how to manage their differences, feels like such a microcosm of what we're trying to do in terms of peace on earth, peace in families, peace in communities, that when I can help people learn how to speak to one another in kindness in that environment, my hope is that it can expand. And so even though I don't usually talk about my Quakerism to my clients, I feel very much inspired by that personal commitment that I have. And I believe that watching this work with couples helps me grow spiritually as I see them struggle with these challenges and learn how to be in touch with their own love, even when they're angry or even when they're feeling a disagreement.
So you like what you do, I guess.
I do. I feel very blessed. Yes.
Okay, let's go on. Our civic action section is represented by Sarah Palmer. Are you here, Sarah? Now there's a problem. Okay, I'll have to read hers too. But we'll come back to her maybe. So I'm going to go on to Carolyn. Carolyn McCoy's work is in the environmental part of the book. And in your case, Carolyn, I'm well aware that Equate has moved beyond what you wrote about. And also you have just given a long talk to a meeting, so people are pretty familiar with what you do. But your last paragraph is really inspiring and enlightening. And would you read that for us?
Sure. This is about our second campaign. We're now on our third campaign. During this campaign, Equate organized 93 direct actions, which have made a difference. In response to Equate's persistence, PICO started meeting with solar stakeholders, created a new solar department, and made it easier and faster to get PICO approval for solar panel installations. In 2018 and 2019, PICO contributed $100,000 towards solar job training at North Philadelphia's OIC, or Opportunities Industrialization Center. Perhaps most significantly, PICO put out an RFP, or request for proposals, for local sources of solar energy, and has committed to.
You got muted, Carolyn.
PICO is still far from leading the transition to solar and renewable energy, but it now recognizes that climate change and economic justice cannot be ignored.
Thanks. I think the paragraph I wanted was the one where you talked about what it had done, the activity had done for you. It may be your last paragraph.
Well, that was my last paragraph.
Okay.
Really? Okay.
So I thought it was.
All right. So
But I would say it has changed me greatly. And I spoke more about that in my talk.
yeah. Oh, we did hear that. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, tell us where you think Equate is going to go in the future.
Right now, well, can you be quiet? Right now, we are targeting the huge asset manager Vanguard, which is one of the largest asset managers in the world. And as they invest in everything, they have huge investments in oil, coal, and gas. I'd like, if I can, to read the land acknowledgement that was read every day of the recent Equate 30-mile walk to Vanguard. May I do?
Please do.
We begin today by remembering that the land we stand on is the traditional territory of the Lenape people who still live in this region, even as many live in diaspora in places like Oklahoma, where their ancestors were forced to relocate. As we walk over the land of the Lenape-Hoking today, we want to remember that before colonization, the air here was clear. The rivers and creeks were clean. The soil was rich, and for thousands of years, gave the Lenape people everything they needed to live good lives. When European colonizers came here, they brought a worldview that encouraged people to take more than they needed and prioritized making money over all else. And that worldview persists in the way Vanguard does business today. The colonial mindset that led to both the exploitation of African peoples and the taking of indigenous lands can still be felt in the business practices of many of the companies Vanguard invests in. Some, like Chevron and Enbridge, flagrantly violate indigenous rights. Like many companies operating in
Caroline McCoy speaking.
Act as if Black lives matter.
Right here. What? You're listening through your ears?
We acknowledge the Black and indigenous peoples who have long fought these exploitative systems. While Quaker Action Team draws inspiration from the Quakers, who also opposed them, we acknowledge that Quakers historically profited from these systems more than they protested them. As we walk toward Vanguard headquarters this week, we seek to decolonize our own hearts and minds as we move step by step toward the change we know is possible.
Wow, that's powerful.
I think in addition
Vanguard is one
to
of the best, right? Compared to
in addition to personal change, we are seeking to decolonize ourselves as we walk through this campaign.
For your information, Dana, who could not be here today, wrote about an acknowledgement of the Lenape in the book. So I'm going to go on to Chuck Esser. And a number of people wrote about international adventures, including Yoko and Vanessa and so on. Chuck was one of them, and he surprised me by concentrating on networking in Poland. I had no idea of that. So Chuck, would you read your opening section to show the breadth and depth of your activism?
Yeah, my ministry has many elements. Sharing reevaluation counseling and working with projects like No Limits for Women, United to End Racism, and sustaining all life, hospitality, young people's liberation, parents' liberation, men's liberation, ending racism in our lifetime, Korean reunification, and supporting friends in Japan and Korea are some of them. In thinking what unites these different elements, I think that networking best describes what I do. I started networking in the 70s with the Movement for a New Society. M&S was an organization that a group of us started to bring together our social change vision with what a nonviolent, just society would look like, with actions that would move us towards that society. We focused on vision, analysis, cooperative living, and campaigns of direct action to end the war in Vietnam and other injustices. My involvement with Poland started in the movement of New Society. There were 3 Polish psychologists at the University of Pennsylvania who were thinking about building a new society. They started coming to M&S activities, and I became friends with 2 of them. Both were interested in learning reevaluation counseling and became members of the class that I taught. Jacek Slemeniczny was also a progressive educator, and we started thinking about revolutionary education. When they returned to Poland in the early 80s, we stayed close, and they both played significant roles in solidarity. Jacek became their first minister of education. At their invitation, I went to Poland in the early 80s and ran some workshops for the students in the National Students Union, and also started teaching small groups of our counseling theory and practice.
Very good. You know, Chuck, the Life Center and other things you did are actually a half century old now. Tell us more about what you're doing today. I mean, I haven't heard about Uganda or First Nations in Canada and so on.
Yeah, okay. I could just say one update on Poland is Jacek just visited us recently, and Nadine Hoover and I were talking the other day, and so there was a Friends meeting in Warsaw, and we just connected them and Friends peace teams with Jacek. So they are starting to think about how they can take active help around the Ukrainian refugee crisis at this time. And Jacek has been doing that for a little bit. But there are a lot of different things. I think that consistency in maintaining relationships and kind of supporting people or making those changes and connecting them with each other really works. And I've done that for a long time. So my career work right now, we're working with the US Congress on a bill to end the Korean War. And we have almost 50 co-signers in the House right now. My work with Youth Build in North Philadelphia, we just had our 30th anniversary this week. And that group has played an amazing role in our city with more than 3,000 graduates who are, would never, many of whom would not be alive if it weren't for Youth Build. My work in Uganda started with a relationship with an early childhood teacher that I became friends with and taught counseling skills too, and developed a large peace center and school in northern Uganda in the middle of the war there. And since she died, she asked us to take over that school, and we've been able to provide food and COVID protection during this last period of time in northern Uganda. So that networking continues to grow, and we've connected that group with Youth Build International, which now is in 14 different countries. So I just feel like you follow the lead of your friends who are involved with making this society and this world a different place, and you do the things that they ask you to do. And you keep in touch, and you listen to them when things get hard, and they listen to you when things get hard. So what a cool part of this process has been that during my recent battle with cancer, many of those friends around the world have been my late night support team. And when I can't sleep or am in pain, I call up folks in Australia or Poland or England or Uganda or Kenya, and they listen to me. So what you give comes back to you multifold. Thank you very much, Greg.
Now, Chuck, stay well and keep at it, will you? All right, Sarah's with us now. So Sarah Palmer is representing the civic action section of the book. And she wrote an informative text on to witness, empower, and rebuild the power story and CPMM. You all know about POWER, I think. And I've asked her to read a paragraph that inspired me. Sarah, would you do that?
Hi. If you could give me another couple of minutes, it would be very helpful. Everything's going on right now.
All right.
I am so sorry.
We'll go on to Berta. So I'm giving you your cue, Berta. I hope you're ready. The final section of the book is titled Volunteerism. And of course, all of us are volunteers. But I reserved it for those who did something unconnected with the meeting or with their own profession. And we have two writers today who contributed to that section, Berta and Jeff. So Berta, I'm going to ask you to read the text that we discussed. Have you unmuted yourself?
Okay. This is the first paragraph. I have carried a ministry under the care of CPMM since 2009, when a spiritual accountability group was approved. The meeting has continued to provide care and accountability since then, and the ministry and its name has evolved. Initially, the meeting approved a ministry named Hearing Voices. A few years later, the meeting approved the name Hearing Voices and Healing. Next, it became Hearing Voices, Healing and Wholeness. The most recently approved and ongoing name for this ministry is Hearing Voices, Healing, Wholeness, and Justice. Language and the power in naming is deeply important to me. Those of us who have been marginalized in a variety of contexts in our cultures share distinct and common experiences from the effects of mainstream structures that cause harm. We recognize that the mainstream culture suffers as well from this structural violence. In our individualistic culture, it is challenging to differentiate between personal prejudice and bias woven in and throughout our institutional structures.
Thanks, Berta. I told you, I hope, how much I admire your willingness to show vulnerability, and you set an example for the meeting that way. I think the question you'd like to address is this. Could you say something more about the language of dominance?
Thanks, Greg. So, voices are messages. Voices can breathe. They are carried by breath and can be experienced palpably in sensations, perceptions, conception, consciousness. With courage, we listen, we feel, we attend, we meet.
Okay.
Go
ahead.
We wait. Spirit doesn't always communicate via cognitive, linear, logical messages. measured in inches, milligrams, or miles. Spirit forces, dandelions, wildflowers, tree roots, through concrete, pollution, toxic violence. So toxic violence is dominance. Voices are canaries in coal mines that can't breathe. Bodies crushed in wars, police violence, and other forms of social control. These voices carry messages that have been suppressed, crushed, or oppressed. Those who claim civilization or sovereignty, often dominant language voices, celebrate killing the messenger. Hearing and listening to discordant messages disrupts the comfort of the most comfortable. So that, to me, is a calling to meet injustice differently. That dominance is the messenger, and understanding the message can transform it.
Thank you, Berta. Jeff Keith winds things up. We'll go back to Sarah, who I hope will be ready soon. Reading from a text about, he's been volunteering at 4th and Lehigh, reading to second graders. And Jeff, you have text you'd like to read, and we talked about how long it should be. We have time, so read as much as you like.
Well, you told me to keep it short, so I
know.
chose just
We now have time.
2 paragraphs. I live in South Philly and I don't have a car, and I've been commuting up 6 miles up into North Philly. It's the poorest neighborhood in the city. It's a Quaker project up there, working in a school that's near that well-known Quaker cemetery called Fairhill Burial Ground. People should know that in 2011, there was some kind of financial crisis, and the school board in Philadelphia closed all the school libraries in the city. And it's been horrible, but the Quakers have raised funds and have restored the library in this school, Julia de Burgos. It's a really dynamic library now. I call it Reading with Second Graders at 4th and Lehigh. This is just the last part of it. It makes me sad to come across second graders who are bright and vivacious but are not yet able to read even simple books. My attitude is summed up this way: they have to be reading pretty well by the end of the second grade. In one morning of 3 hours with a break, I can work with just 4 kids. I like to have the same kids week after week so that I can see their progress. Every year I have at least one boy or girl for whom I see a kind of light bulb flash on at some point during the year, and they go from being a non-reader to being a reader. Last year, a boy went from almost the 0 point in reading English to being quite a good reader. He had a Spanish language last name, although verbally he spoke fluent English with no accent. So maybe his parents couldn't help him with reading books in English at home. Seeing somebody make that kind of progress obviously makes all of my difficult trekking around on public transportation worthwhile. As I said, I've kept at this for more than 4 years now. And I wrote that, of course, before the pandemic, and I haven't been doing it since the pandemic is going.
Well, I want to ask you, what does the future hold for you? You said you can't bike anymore, so.
Well, I haven't biked for a number of years. It's 4 years or something.
But
I never rode a bike all the way 6 miles up to North Philly. I go on the subway mostly. Well, there's a problem of getting there so early in the morning, and I don't have a car, and it takes me an hour to get up there. And they want us in the morning. So I'm excited about libraries, and I'm finding children's books for the library that we've restored up there in Julia de Burgos School. And I may go up later in the day. If they would let me read with the children into the afternoon, I would eat lunch up there. But it's just a problem. I don't want to get up so early. I was leaving at 7:45 in the morning to run up to North Philly. And so I'm not really sure what the future will hold. I wish I could find something in South Philly, but there are no Quaker projects in South Philly. And it's great to meet sisters and brothers from the Quaker world and do work with them up there in North Philly.
Let me add to that, Jeff, this whole Fair Hill project, of which yours is part, right? The school
Yeah,
reading.
right.
There's another article in the book by Gene Warrington, who's of Chestnut Hill, who's director of the Fair Hill Enterprise. And that's been a Quaker project, starting with the burial ground where Lucretia Mott is buried and the cleanup there for many years. And Jeff, as you say, it's a big Quaker project. There are quite a few of you up there, right?
Yeah, one of the people that started it, I think, was Margaret Hope Bacon. She wrote a lot of biographies of Quakers, famous Quakers, and she discovered that Lucretia Mott and what's her husband's name, James Mott, are buried in this burial ground in North Philly, and it was now full of weeds and drug needles and everything. And she said, well, that's not acceptable. And so Margaret Bacon got Quakers mobilized to clean up this cemetery and actually buy it back and restore the whole thing. And now it's kind of a park for the neighborhood, although it still has graves in it. And then they went out into the neighborhood and said, well, what else can we do in this neighborhood? And that's been going on for 30 years, doing other works in the neighborhood. And they went into schools and.
All right, thanks, Jeff.
Mhm.
Sarah, you're with us, and we talked about something you would write, and I have to get back to my text. And you're going to tell us about, or read to us about your article, from your article on power. And I picked out a paragraph that inspired me, and I guess you're going to read that one, I hope.
Yep. Well, first of all, many apologies. I thought it was at 1 and then other stuff was happening at the same time. So here I am, and thank you for your patience. Throughout its development, a key emphasis of power has been to bring together people across lines of race, income level, faith tradition, culture, and neighborhood in order to build broad-based power for policy change. The organization has long recognized racism as intersectional with and inextricable from other forms of oppression.
Excellent. Is there more?
That's the whole paragraph.
Okay, good, yes. And what is the agenda for 2022? I think we'd all like to hear that.
Yeah, it is pretty complex, so I'm just going to touch very quickly on each of the campaigns. So the Live Free campaign, which focuses on issues of mass incarceration and gun violence and more police violence, one of its main thrusts is continuing to work with the Citizens Police Oversight Commission, which they helped found or helped get established. They're having neighborhood level conversations around gun violence, created a resource guide on cash bail issues. They're fighting ICE in a number of ways. That's immigration detention type activities, and seeking to make the arbitration process between municipalities and the police and firefighters unions be more transparent. In education, their big push has been to work on fair school funding at the state level, which is a very, very long and difficult struggle. And the biggest thing that has happened recently is the lawsuit against the Pennsylvania Department of Education, the legislature, et cetera, to fight for truly fair funding in the state. And although Philadelphia is one of the parties to the suit, it's actually being brought by a it's either rural or suburban school district that is also terribly badly funded. Climate justice and jobs, which is where power especially intersects with Earthquaker Action Team, is currently focused on a very big summit that will be taking place. I think it's either later this month or in June. And that's open to all. So I hope people will consider going, and I'll get information out about it. Economic dignity is another of those very broad-ranging things that covers things ranging from housing to banking to union work. And so one of their major focuses right now is on affordable housing in Philadelphia, especially in the light of all this, of all the gentrification and the new development. And also on the public banking campaign, which is doing very well in city council now. Finally, civic engagement is one of the big focuses of power, focusing on redistricting midterm elections and educating and engaging newly registered voters. And that's about it, unless or Jeff have things that I've left out.
Well, thanks for explaining that, and thank you for taking leadership in meeting, as I know you do. We have some time, and I want to introduce somebody that some of you may not know, and her picture there named Kathleen from Albuquerque, but we know her well, good friends. She was a member of our meeting until what, Kathleen, 15 years ago?
In 2005, 17 years now.
17 years, okay. And you wrote something that I actually would, if you had volunteered, I would say we should put in. Can we still do it? Do you mind? Or do you have the text to hand it yourself? Well, you can read it.
I wasn't expected to say anything.
I know. You had to volunteer.
Yeah, so I pulled up what I had sent you and pulled up the final paragraph.
Okay.
Just in case you put me on the spot.
We can go on. Would you be comfortable reading it?
Sure.
All right.
Okay. It has to, Greg got in touch with me because I've been dealing with cancer for almost 30 years now. And he helped me to understand that the way I deal with cancer is some form of ministry. So I will read the final paragraph of what I wrote and hope that tells anybody anything. Okay. Let's see here. Currently, I'm feeling called to help myself and others to understand the importance of seeing a person with chronic disease as a whole person, and to take care not to exclude them from any aspect of life and community that they feel comfortable participating in. I'm also feeling called to encourage people to honor their own pain and suffering, no matter how much worse mine or that of others seems to them. I believe that this helps us all to have a chance to be open to each other and to fully love and care for one another. I also believe that we all have hardships, and that allowing ourselves to feel them and to share them helps us to move forward with living out our precious lives and being more sensitive to others in need.
That's wonderful. All right, so again, we're talking about vulnerability as a preface or a building stone for strength. And Kathleen, you've demonstrated that. Thank you. Before we go, I'd like to acknowledge other people who are here who contributed to the book, although not to the reading today. Fred Kazunik, I'm reading from the picture row. Steve Gulick, Carol Smith, there's Rita Farley, and Liz Robinson, Terry Roberts, Pat Stewart, and Trish Sutterly, and Arlene Kelly, excuse me, Arlene. So I hope I didn't miss anybody, but thank you all for contributing. It's been a very exciting project for me. What else do I want to say, Yoko?
I think we might like to open it that everyone can unmute.
Yeah, would anybody like to unmute and make a comment or ask a question?
Maybe we can all do. And this is a celebration of the whole community, and I'd like us to celebrate this moment.
Anyone like to comment or ask a question? Pat.
Chuck, listening to you, I was struck by how many interconnections, what a web of connections there is. The Jacek, who's the clerk of Warsaw Monthly Meeting, has participated in some of the meetings for worship that Friends House Moscow Support Association holds every day. He connected with an American who is now personally providing some support for counseling services for Ukrainian refugees in Poland. And at the same time, Friends House Moscow is donating to what's called Quaker Central European Gathering, which is raising money to support work throughout Central and Eastern Europe to help Ukrainian refugees. So that, and the Estonian friend who is now organizing AVP and counseling for Ukrainian refugees with help from Friends House Moscow, by the way, is someone who trained in AVP as a prison chaplain. And some of you may not know that Alternatives to Violence Project, AVP, originated in America in the prison at Attica after the riots, which were now, 30 years ago, and that Chuck was one of the Quakers who originated that program. So that there is we are all part of a very sticky web. We're all stuck together.
Thanks, Pat. I'm not sure I saw your picture. I'm not sure I introduced you. Pat also has an article about her work in Russia.
Yeah.
Very interesting stuff. Okay, any other comments?
I just want to say, like, as one of the few friends here, I think under 50, you guys are so cool. Like, you all are so cool, and I'm so grateful to feel so nourished by this community, even all the way in Central Mexico. So thank you all. You're all so inspiring. Oh my gosh, thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll wrap up. The book is in the library.
There's one more comment. Carol has a comment.
Carol has her hand up.
Excuse me? Sorry?
Can I be heard?
Oh, Chuck.
Just wanted to say quickly that for me, the magic of service is that what you give, you receive. You put things out on the water and it floats back to you in the form that you need it. And so many people articulated that today. And it indeed becomes a spiral of personal growth. Mm-hmm. And so many people articulated that as well today. And I think it's what just makes us, the experience of Quaker Service so rich. And I really appreciate Greg for collecting this and reflecting it back toward us. Mm. So thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Very rewarding to me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If we have time, I would like us to read out Terry's.
Oh, okay.
But
Terry, you're there.
Terry, you are there, right? Yeah. So we did this.
Can we do a dialogue pretending to be you on your article, the interview you did for the newsletter?
I'm not sure what you're asking, but we can do whatever.
You remember what the text you submitted is now in the book.
And then we will finish with that. And I think we did start saying about where the books are, but books are at the library. So,
Yoko, we can't hear you very well.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
All right, so Yoko's going to play Greg, and I will play Terry.
Where's this? Okay. So Terry's talk. So when did you come to Central Philadelphia? About 2015?
No, I have to read. Okay, I came in 2013, and it was the first time I joined. I had attended other meetings.
You volunteer at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, CHOP. Do you do other volunteer work?
A little. Prior to the pandemic, I was doing some fundraising for right sharing of world resources. I helped seniors work on computers at the Free Library, and I continue to prepare and pack food for AIDS and cancer victims at MANA.
Did your volunteering at CHOP start, let's see, on your retirement?
Yes, I retired from the city's public health department in April 2018.
Why did you choose CHOP? How did it start?
My daughter, Charlotte, had volunteered there during her nursing studies at Temple, and now she works in the emergency room. She thought I would be interested in volunteering as a bedside buddy. It took months to get all the clearances, vaccinations, certification to work with children, etc.
What are the details of your volunteering day work?
I go one morning a week, 9 to 12, and spend an hour each with 3 kids. A nurse assigns them to me, or I ask around to see which child needs a buddy.
Is there some sort of approach you're being asked to do?
There was really no training on how to approach the child. You just figure out what the child would like to do. A lot of them are sort of caged in their beds, and they're happy to see me. I take them on walks, and they're excited to see the other children. And the nurses are so nice to the children. It shows that healing is not just pills and operations. When I take a child for a tour of the floor, nurses kneel and talk with the child. They have a happy and encouraging conversation with the child.
I'd like you to tell us about a particular child.
There's one little girl named Maria sitting on her bed. She looks like a little Buddha. She's 6, deaf and mute, and she's had a number of surgeries. Her arms are not well formed, but she views her Facebook friends by working a tablet with her toes. She knows how to tell me when she's not pleased with me, using frowns and shaking her head too. No.
What do you say to a child with words or without?
I tell the child how happy I am to have time together. I wish them a good day. I hold her hand, and take her to the window to see all the people moving around. I pay attention to their interests and have fun with them. I tell her about my day.
Do you plan to keep on volunteering there as long as you can?
Volunteerism has recently returned. Yes, I enjoy cuddling and rocking a baby. I wonder how such a young baby could already have to spend time in the hospital. It pains me to hear a baby crying. I wonder about the life ahead for the child.
Do you feel like you are making a difference?
Christians celebrate Jesus' birth as a way to acknowledge the guileless and open-hearted nature of children. A child opens and flowers an adult's heart. The emotional bond with the child overtakes the parents' lives, dictates when they sleep, how they spend their time and money. For some parents, the parental duties last for a lifetime. I have met mothers of children with cancer, developmental deficits, and transplants that know all the medicines, procedures, and therapies.
What's the best part of it for you?
Holding the babies is a really pleasant thing. I got to hold a 6-day-old baby. I hope to lessen the scariness and boredom of the child's time in the hospital. I long for the joy of having time with them and enjoying the playtime.
Any sum up?
What heals a child? pills, needles, surgery, rest, I entertain, hold, and comfort the child. Give a human connection through my voice, my contact, my caring and attentiveness, my playfulness. I warm their feet with my hands and plug their mouths with a pacifier. I roll matchbox cars over their bed. I give them rides around the hallways so that they can see their neighbors. We enjoy a desperately needed physical and spiritual bond. The other, the foreign, becomes familiar and safe. My time with them may give relief from the boring time of being stuck in a cage-like bed, or may put them to sleep. I find it hard to read that. Thanks for a very moving interview you did, Terry. And it is time for final comments.
Or worship.
Or worship, we could do that. What if we settled in for a minute or two? Thank you, friends. It's been a moving time.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Greg and Yoko. And all of
Thank you,
you.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Greg.
Greg. Awesome job.
Thank you all.
Everybody.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg and
It's been a
Yoko.
whole.
I'm so glad to have been here today. I just feel that we're all united by this incredible web, and that I feel like we're doing the work for each other.
Thank you, Margot.
Yes, as I listened, I could hear each member's way of bringing more love into the world. That when we have been invited to love, there are a multitude of ways of expressing and demonstrating that love.
Bye, everyone. Love you
Have a great day,
all.
everybody.
Bye. Okay, we're leaving. No, I guess we're not.
No,
Bye.
as a host, we will stay till the end. Oh. Thank you, Esther. Wow. That was good to get started. People are not leaving. Hi, Tom.
Come on, guys, I want to have my lunch.
Hi, Tom and Papa.
Bye, Tom.
Yeah, thanks.